We return from the detour caused by the Brexit to focus on my favorite asset class, real estate notes. Here's the big question. Where do you find them? I'll tell you right now. I'm Brian Ellis. This is episode number 209. Hello, SDI Nation. Welcome to the podcast of record for savvy, self-directed investors like you, where each weekday you learn how to find, understand, and profit from exceptional investment opportunities. Hey, folks, be sure to check out the show notes for today's episode. Any link or resource I mention in this show will be posted there at sdiradio.com/208. Hey, if you missed any of the last 3 episodes leading up to today's show, I respectfully recommend you go back and take them in before continuing today. Everything you'll hear about on today's show builds on that information, particularly episode numbers 206 and 207. Again, you'll find all of that information and the links to all of it at sdiradio.com/208. And with that, we're diving back into our discussion of real estate note investing. So let's imagine that you've decided you like the idea of investing in real estate notes. So the question is, where do you go to find them? Great question, my friends. Real estate notes are not like stocks or even physical real estate, both of which you can easily call up a local broker who specializes in that type of asset class. Real estate notes are kind of an insider's game. So how do you get in on the inside? Well, let's break it down, shall we? Remember that real estate notes are just loans secured by real estate. So who produces most real estate loans? If you guessed the big lenders like Wells Fargo and Chase Bank, you're right. So why don't you just call up Wells or Chase and ask them to buy a note or two from them? Or maybe you should call up one of the smaller but still very large regional banks like SunTrust, BB&T, or Capital One. Well, there's nothing stopping you from doing that, but it won't likely work. You see, what usually happens is that those lenders will package a bunch of mortgages together and sell them off to investors as a group in very high dollar volumes. Remember, those lenders are lending hundreds of billions of dollars collectively each quarter. So to them, selling off mortgages individually would be a huge logistical challenge, and most of them just won't do it. Thus, you won't generally be able to buy newly originated real estate notes directly from major lenders. Where do you go then, since the big boys and the regionals are by and large out of the picture? If you said small local banks, you're right. Well, you're partly right. To be clear, there is a reasonable shot at getting access to some real estate notes for purchase from small local banks under one condition: if you have the right relationships. Some time ago, I banked at a local bank in my area that had only about 5 branches in one specific county. I knew the president of the bank personally, and the bank's attorney was my real estate attorney, so I knew the players there. I could probably have pulled off buying some notes from that bank because I had the relationships. So that would be a great starting point if you have those kind of relationships in your local area, but it's a limited option. It's just not plausible to know every banker in every local bank. But even though you can get deals that way, it doesn't really sound very promising. It sounds like you're in for a lot of detective work before you even find a note that will actually enable you to make an investment. And frankly, that's true if what you do is think conventionally. And so far, there's been a whole lot of conventional thinking in this episode. Ugh, I feel my skin crawling. So what other options are there? Well, there are 2 potentially good sources for getting access to note deals: note brokers and individual investors. Note brokers are people who are connected to people who own real estate notes and who want to sell them. They're not dissimilar to real estate brokers or stock brokers, but there are not many note brokers at all. And a lot of the people who hold themselves out as note brokers have never done a deal. They just took a class and think they know something. You should avoid dealing with those people. It's a waste of your time. So let's hold our discussion of note brokers for another day, because even though there are sometimes great deals to be had through note brokers, I found that's not a very easy place for new note investors to get started. It's like swimming in shark-infested waters. That leads us to an excellent alternative: individual investors. You see, many real estate investors like cash flow from real estate, but they do not want to be a landlord. So what they do, instead of leasing their property to a tenant, is they sell that property. And they act like the bank too. So what they'll do is they'll tell their buyer, okay, this house you want, it's priced at $100,000. You have to pay me a down payment of $10,000, and you've got to make me payments every month of, say, $900 or so for every month for the next 30 years. Now, in that way, the investor is still collecting cash flow. That's $900 a month or whatever the case may be. But they're not being a landlord, which means they have practically zero responsibility in the deal other than to collect their payments. It's really very nice. That kind of note, it's called an owner-financed or seller-financed note, is a potential gold mine to you. It represents an opportunity to get what you want, which is a safe, high-yield cash flow, while giving that investor who created it something that could really help them, a chunk of money. So it can be a huge win-win. Now, folks, look, it took a little longer to get to this point than I expected, and I want to honor my commitment to you to keep this show short and focused. So in tomorrow's episode, we're going to pick up with this idea of working with individual investors as your source of real estate note deals. And look, you're going to want to tune in tomorrow because I'm going to give you an awesome strategy for how you can buy those notes from individual investors, but sometimes not the whole note, sometimes just a piece of the note, the safest, most secure, and truly profitable pieces. Look, the flexibility of these financial instruments is simply astounding to me, and you'll see why tomorrow. In the meantime, my friends, later today, I'm sending an invitation to all of you on the SDI alert list about some great real estate investing opportunities. And I'll invite you to a webinar where I'll tell you about all of them. If you're in the market for creating some high profit, high yield cash flow in your portfolio through real estate, you will definitely want to pay attention to this information, but you have to be on the SDI alert list to get the invitation. It's free to you to get on that list. Just visit today's show notes page at sdiradio.com/209 or text the word SDI radio with no spaces or periods to 33444. My friends, it's so good to be with you again today. And remember, invest wisely today and live well forever.